greater influence over the operation and character of other institutions than is the case in societies with which we often compare ourselves. We think about what the nature of a free market economy is. And I'm going to go through this very rapidly, but the emphasis is on freedom and on markets. That is to say, economic relations assume, indeed require, that individuals are relatively free to move into the marketplace and exchange goods for one another, exchange labor for wages, and so forth. That requires, in a free market context, freedom on the part of individuals. So you're free to move. If you want to move, to go take a job, you're not bound legally or by strong tradition to stay in place, the place you were born. You're relatively free of those kinds of traditional social restraints. And that's a requirement of a free market economy in any genuine sense. Institutions, their primary function, no matter what particular area we're talking about, be it the economy, political system, family, and so on. Institutions' primary function is to guide behavior. The free market economy is a very interesting and somewhat distinct sort of institution in that respect. Because while the free market economy does indeed guide behavior, it does so in a particularly open means. That's the emphasis on freedom. You're free to choose the job you want. That's not to say you're necessarily going to get it, but you're not prohibited from competing for whatever job you might want. There's an emphasis on individual innovation. There's an emphasis on not always playing by the rules. That's not to say that there's a strong emphasis on violating important rules, but we permit, in a free market context, we permit people, indeed we encourage people, to move outside the rules. We have expressions for that. We tell one another that it's important on occasion to think outside the box, for example. That is to think innovatively, creatively about how we approach particular problems and so on. So the nature of a free market economy as an institution differs from other institutions in that the requirements that it imposes on persons insofar as it attempts to guide behavior are peculiarly open and allow for, indeed encourage, a great deal of innovation. Why is the economy in the United States relatively dominant over other institutions compared to other societies? In brief, that has to do with the historical development of our nation, compared with the European nations that, in some important sense, gave birth to us. A capitalist free market economy in Europe emerged after other powerful institutions were already in place, and therefore had to accommodate itself to these pre-existing powerful institutions. The institution of religion, church, the institution of the political system, the king. But in the United States, a free market economy was allowed to develop more or less without the restraints imposed by other powerful institutions. The king was over there, and when we got tired of paying taxes to the king, we managed to extricate ourselves from his dictates. A free market economy in the U.S. then emerged more or less on its own, compared with in Europe, and not having to accommodate itself to the requirements and dictates of other powerful institutions. Indeed, it was able, to a greater degree than elsewhere, to mold the institutions around it to its own requirements. A free market economy is quite consistent as an aspect of social structure, is quite consistent with the definition of the American dream we just looked at earlier. The American dream places a strong emphasis on open individual competition. Well, that's a core value of the free market economy, indeed a requirement of the free market economy. The American dream places strong emphasis, indeed its primary emphasis is on material success or achievement, while free market economy is all about achieving success materially, economically. A free market economy, finally, contains within it tendencies toward what sociologists and some psychologists refer to as anomie. Anomie it means literally without rules. A means without, nomos means rule or law. So anomie is used by social scientists as a term to describe without law, without regulation. There is a strong tendency in a free market economy toward anomie. And as I'm going to suggest in a moment, that tendency toward anomie, or what I'll call that anomic tendency, sets the stage, given other conditions, for relatively high rates of crime. Let me go back now, though, and elaborate just for a moment how it is that the economy dominates other institutions in the American case compared with other developed societies. That dominance is manifested in three basic ways we argue in our book. First of all, the values and goals of other institutions are to some degree devalued, become less important when compared with the values and goals of the economic system, the economic institution. So one way dominance is manifested is through the devaluation of other institutions, the reduction in the importance of their values and goals with respect to the emphasis placed on economic values and goals. Secondly, dominance of one institution over others, in this case the economy over other non-economic institutions, is manifested through what we call accommodation. That is, other institutions are to some degree required to accommodate